There you go.
Well, it's a special privilege today, actually, to have folks from the Lehigh Valley Health Network on. As we've discussed with the Easton Hospital having almost closed, there have been a lot of shopping around by folks trying to decide where they want to be affiliated to get their medical care and what's going to be available, who has what. And as you know, Ashley, I don't know if you know yet, Jim, but we had the St. Luke's people on before, and we had you on today because we felt that we really wanted to hear from you about what's going on. Now, I'm only sorry there aren't more people here today online. We usually have quite a bit more, up to 20. But how can we compete with an iron butt rod? I don't know, but we'll. But it'll be recorded, so others will catch up with it. So let me just give a brief bio on Jim Miller. He's a CRNA, which means he's a nurse anesthetist by training. And he currently is Vice President of Operations and Perioperative Services at Lehigh Valley Health Network. And he's going to be the executive for the Lehigh Valley Hospital Oaks, Hecktown Oaks, as it opens on July 1. And all of you have received a notice that Ashley sent me about an open house, so you'll be able to go out to that if you're available to see that. I will unfortunately not be, and my wife may be, however, so she might be there. He's a certified registered nurse anesthetist, as I said, director of anesthesia and perfusion services for a time, moved on to operational leadership for all facets over the network of perioperative and endoscopic services. He did his Bachelor of Science degree in nursing from Holy Family University, Master of Science from St. Joseph's in Philadelphia, I think that is, and Master of Business Administration at DeSales. And then he's currently, interestingly, on the Greater Easton Development Partnership Board of Directors. That's an interesting part to have in your work life. Ashley Toth is Public Affairs Specialist for the network, Community Engagement, Marketing, and Public Affairs. So we're glad to have both of you here, and we're anxious to hear a little bit about what's going on with LVHN and specifically the Hecktown Oaks.
Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen there. And really, it's my pleasure. And Ken, to your point, I don't think I've ever had to compete with an Iron Rider, to get an audience to speak. So this was interesting. I will tell you, over the past 16 months, I've been on many WebExes, Zooms, Skypes, you name it. And this has been the most enjoyable opening of a meeting that I've ever been on. So thank you all for inviting me, and I've enjoyed it so far. Hopefully you'll enjoy my presentation and everything that we're going to talk about today that is related to Hecktown Oaks. As Ken said, I'm Jim Miller. I've been at Lehigh Valley Health Network for 19 years. So most of my professional career was spent here. Prior to that time, as you can probably see from my undergraduate and my first graduate degree, I spent a lot of time in Philadelphia. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I started my healthcare journey in 1994 in Philadelphia as a bedside nursing assistant. I worked my way through nursing school and then became a nurse anesthetist in around 2001. Started that career in Philadelphia, spent about a year there at Easton Hospital in North Philadelphia, serving that community, and then transferred and took a position up in the Lehigh Valley. And I moved to the Valley in 2003. And I will tell you, not a year goes by that I don't learn, great things about it. And over the past year working on this Hecktown Oaks project, getting involved with organizations like yourself and the great work that goes on in Easton has really been an eye-opening experience for me, and it's been amazing. As Ken said, I'm a member of the Greater Easton Development Partnership Board. I've been able to learn from that team. We've been working very closely with the Two Rivers Board, so Paul Brunswick and Janet and that team, and really seeing how we can partner. And I think that's one of the things I wanted to talk to this group about today. It's not about opening another hospital. It's not about just opening services we think are important. It's about partnering with organizations like yours to see how we can bring wellness and improve the health of the community that we serve, from Easton all the way up through the Slate Belt. And that's what we've been working with many of the groups that we've been talking to and partnering with since the inception of Hecktown Oaks about 3 years ago. And the one thing I want to say is if there are any questions, please stop me. I do have some slides to kind of go through, We don't have to wait to the end. I encourage questions at any point, but really want to talk through, how we've come about this campus. So most of you probably know where the campus is, right off of Route 33 and Hecktown Road. The front entrance is on Hecktown Road, the rear entrance is on Newburgh Road. It's an expansive campus. We sit on about 80 acres on the between Hecktown and Newburgh, and we do have some land on the other side of Newburgh as well. And the reason why that's important, this is a rendering of the campus, probably from about 8 months ago, not real life photos, and I'll get to those as well. The reason why that is important is that the entire campus is designed for expansion and growth. And why that's important for us to continue working with community members like yourself and organizations like yourself is we are building this plane as we're flying. We have some anchor services that we know are important to the community from feedback, but other services we add in the future in a phase 2 tower, which has already started, as well as other programs that we want to add to support the community in health and wellness fashion, will be added at a later date. And we do have the land to do it based on feedback and community need. I'm going to review the hospital services. So it is a full service hospital. It's gone through, many iterations as we were planning this, and we were getting feedback from physician providers, as well as community members and community organizations of what this campus should be. We have a full service emergency department with 28 bays. 4 of those bays out of the 28 are dedicated to the care of children. Not a, quote unquote children's ER, but what you'll see in the future pictures that I can show, and anyone who's able to make it to the tour on Friday, you'll see that they're very child friendly. The entrance to those 4 bays is separate from the adult ER. And a lot of the finishes and fixtures in the room are very, very child friendly. And they have their own waiting area also. In addition to those 4 bays, 8 of the bays can be used as observation. They can also be used as an emergency room bay. But if you have an illness where you come in and we're not sure you need to be admitted or being transferred anywhere else, and you probably need to stay 12 to 24 hours, you don't have to wait in an emergency room on a stretcher. There's actually a bed in the room and all the comforts of television, interactive video, and all of that. So we feel very confident in our emergency room and the offerings that we have for the community. As I said earlier, we do plan to open early July. Our hope is July 1, waiting pending regulatory approval. At that point, we'll have 20 inpatient beds. Fast forward to November, our phase 2 tower will be opening, and we're going to outfit in November for a hopeful opening in November, 30 additional beds. So that'll bring the hospital capacity at that point to 50 beds. As healthcare continues to evolve and transition, the thought is not to open too many beds because a lot of services are focused on the outpatient world and keeping people out of the hospital, not bringing them in. Other hospital services, we have 4 beautiful operating rooms. And as you heard from my background, I've spent much of my professional career in an operating room providing anesthesia care. These are state-of-the-art, large operating rooms, multi-specialty. We're going to offer breast surgery here. We're going to offer plastic surgery here. We're going to offer general surgery here. One of our anchor services is orthopedic. So total hip, total knee replacement, sports medicine, hand surgery. We also have urology surgery that is planned. Some of this has not been planned entirely all along the way, but getting feedback and understanding where our primary care providers are telling us they need additional care. That's why we're adding additional services. So our business plan and our narrative to the state has evolved dramatically since we first submitted it. We will also have 2 procedure rooms within the operating room suite for minor procedures where they do not require anesthesia. In between the emergency room and the operating room, we have a beautiful advanced imaging suite for X-ray, ultrasound, CAT scan, MRI, fluoroscopy, as well as a PET scanner. It is a cancer campus, so we do have a cancer center on campus. So it's really important for us to make sure that everything we have within the hospital proper complements the services we also have on campus. And as I go through some of the other offerings, you'll understand why a PET scanner and why breast surgery and why other things are so important for this campus. One of the other things that we've added since the campus was first thought of is pulmonary function testing. So if anyone's ever had COPD or respiratory illness, they may have received a pulmonary function test. No matter whose health network you're affiliated with. If you go there, you're going to have a delay in pulmonary function testing due to COVID. What we heard from our primary care providers is there's a significant delay no matter where they send them. And then we looked at our own internal programs, and we were booking out about 6 weeks, and we did not feel good about it, knowing that COVID and the respiratory illness. So as we were building this hospital, we converted a space that was planned for something that could be moved off campus and put pulmonary function right on campus. And when we open, hopefully on July 1, I'll knock on wood here, we'll also have pulmonary function testing. We have a cardio diagnostic suite. If you come in through our emergency room and you have a rule out for some chest pain and maybe not an acute MI where we know you're having an MI, you need certain tests, you can have those diagnostic studies immediately adjacent to the emergency room. And why I keep bringing up the location of these sites is because unlike any other hospital that we have or anyone has in this region, it is built with the patient in mind. So your emergency care to your diagnostic care to your operative care. And then right upstairs is where your patient care room. You'll see it's a very efficient, very patient-friendly footprint. We have 24/7 inpatient lab, and we also added over the past 2 months an outpatient lab right to the main corridor in case you need your labs drawn on campus. You can go to one of our health centers, but you can also come to campus if you're seeing a specialist on campus. We do have a pharmacy. It's not a retail pharmacy, but it does serve our hospital patients, our cancer institute, our infusion bays, as well as our colleagues on campus can have their prescriptions filled here, trying to make it more convenient for them and allow for us to have colleagues who work within LVHN and work at our campus not have to travel to one of our other sites. While the public can't use this pharmacy because it's not retail, our patients can. So upon discharge, your prescription can be filled there, brought up to your room prior to discharge. This is something we're very proud of, the Cancer Institute at Hecktown Oaks. Many of you may know, or many of you may not know, that we are part of the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Alliance. And as part of that, the residents of Easton and Northampton County can be part of clinical trials out of the Memorial Sloan Kettering. We offer this at Muhlenberg, we offer it at Cedar Crest, and we offer it at Pocono. And we're very proud that we can offer this day one at Hecktown Oaks. So all the clinical trials and all the beneficial programs related to our MSK Alliance will happen here day one. We have 14 beautiful infusion bays. Many of them look out over a garden that is currently being constructed, so it won't be ready for day one, but it will be ready hopefully by fall completely. Hardscaping, landscaping, just a lot of very nice natural elements that were the infusion bays, as well as our patient care tower will look out over that. We do offer radiation oncology services, so we have a linear accelerator, which was a major undertaking for us, placed on campus. And the theme of thinking about expansion and growth for the future and meeting the needs of the community, we do have identified space if we need to add another linear accelerator vault. That's something that requires a lot of pre-planning. So we know that as this market and this area and this population grows, like it has been, there may be need for additional care. So we wanted to map that out to make sure if the need arises, we can actually put this in. So we have planned for a second linear accelerator in the future. I met our 3 genetic counselors this morning at our first patient experience meeting. They're on site. They're very, very excited, and they do a lot of cancer screening and genetic counseling around cancer, and they will be based out of the Hecktown Oaks campus. We also have something called a multidisciplinary clinic team. What that means is if you come in for one type of cancer and you've been diagnosed, you'll not only meet with your hematologist, oncologist, you can meet with your surgical specialists, as well as your radiation oncologist in one suite, one visit, very, very patient friendly. You don't have to go from place to place to place. Everybody will be there in a multidisciplinary clinic to take care of you. And then last, but certainly not least, we have a comprehensive breast health center, a very large and open breast health center that we can do mammography. We have 3 units here. We actually have 4 bays for mammography. We have pre-planning with breast ultrasound, and that is connected immediately adjacent to the Cancer Institute. And right on the other side of that is our surgical oncologist. We have 3 breast surgeons on campus dedicated to the care of women and breast cancer. The health center, which is, most people think of it as a medical office building, but we have so much service packed into this. We're calling it a health center at Hecktown Oaks. We have a musculoskeletal center on the first floor, a very, very large orthopedic practice, joint and spine care, chiropractics, physiatry, pain, rheumatology, orthopedic, sports medicine, hand surgery, joint surgeons, all on campus. We have a gorgeous outpatient rehab site on Hecktown Oaks. It has an outpatient gym for rehabilitation. It has cardiac rehab in a separate area, as well as aquatic rehab. We do have a pool within the rehab space for rehabilitation that requires aquatic therapy. Also, as I talked about cardio diagnostics being in the hospital, we do have a suite within our health center where we do have advanced cardio diagnostics there. We have a nuclear camera for stress tests. We have the ability to do stress, echo, EKG, vascular ultrasound, all there. And that is a service that is immediately adjacent to our cardiology practice, as well as our family medicine practice on the second floor of our health center. And then I already stated, we do have our surgical oncology practice at the health center as well. So some other important points as we thought about this campus as we were building it and listening to the community and really doing some of our surveys. We have our internal consumer insights group. And one of the questions that came up from our work with some of the other organizations in Easton is how are our members of the Easton community going to get to Hecktown Oaks? They don't all have a car. So what we did is we validated that. We looked with our consumer insight groups at populations surrounding the Hecktown Oaks catchment area, about 30 miles, and said which communities most need a bus route so they can get to campus easily without a car. And what we found is about 12 to 15% of the Easton community, as well as some folks up in the Slate Belt, do not have a car associated with their household. So we worked with Lanta to make sure that there was transportation. Very happy. Lanta was incredible to work with for us. We do have a new bus route that starts, I believe it's next week. It's the 106 North and 106 South that will go from Easton up through Route 248. And then there are two other routes that they're planning. They won't run every day as a regular route, but there'll be some other routes, and that will help bring members from north down to the Hecktown Oaks campus. In addition to our own work and working with some of our advisory councils and our community groups, we thought it was wise to, as we were putting the final touches on the campus about 8 to 10 months ago, to understand what are those new things that patients wanted and learned from the COVID pandemic. So we sent out about 5,000 surveys to neighborhoods surrounding Hecktown Oaks. Surprisingly, in a very positive way, we had a good response rate. We had a response rate of just above 20%, which I was told by our colleagues who do a lot of surveying that is a good response rate, especially when it's cold out to the community. And we got a lot of feedback. And I will tell you that it allowed us to reemphasize and refocus some of our energy on things that were important to the patients in the community. So when they step foot on the Hecktown Oaks campus, we're partnering on what they need, and we're providing an environment that's important to them, not just our clinical programs that we think will serve the community, some of the amenities and really final touches that the community feel are important. Not surprisingly, during the pandemic, a lot of the feedback was related to infection control and cleanliness procedures. And I'll talk through some of the things that we've done from the beginning and some of the things that we've changed with a lot of the feedback. Convenient parking, valet services. It's not a large campus. We weren't 100% planning on valet services because parking is so convenient to the campus, but we heard that as a theme really through every demographic, saying that this is an important part. When I arrive at a campus, I want to pull up and I want to have valet service offerings. Robust Wi-Fi, wireless internet access for patients and families. And then there were some other feedbacks, and I'll get into some of the amenities that we designed around the feedback. Valet parking we spoke about, that came out of the survey. We will have valet parking at all entrances, the ability to valet park, whether you come into the hospital, the Cancer Institute, or the medical office building, you'll be able to valet park. Volunteer services, we work with our volunteers from other campuses. They'll be providing pet therapy. They'll be there to greet, help provide information, as well as transport our patients. One of the other things we heard is when someone comes into a hospital, they want to know where to go. And even though we feel that this is not a large campus and we have the right staff there, we're placing a greeter at the front door. So it's someone, as soon as you walk in, the first point of contact with a smile on their face to greet you, to welcome you, to ask you what you need and where you're going. Provide any additional help to get you to registration, whether it's a wheelchair, get you an ID badge, or provide you with, what hours are you in the right location. That greeter will be there and be responsible for making sure that your experience as soon as you walk in the door is positive. And then some of the other features that we've added, things really to make it easy. So for our staff and for our patients, bed management systems, queuing systems at registration. So when you come in and you're directed to a registration bay, it'll have a number there lit up saying this is where you want to go. If someone says bed 2, you'll see that lit up so it can actually direct you there. The Wi-Fi we already talked about, and within our patient rooms, we have these large 55-inch flat screen TVs that are not just TVs, they're also informational, they're educational. We can put our staff photos so you know who your staff, who your nurse is, who your physician is, who your specialist that is being consulted can actually show up on that TV. The other thing the TV serves is we put a camera in every room. And why that's important is because the camera is a two-way camera. It can actually allow our specialists to sign in from anywhere at any time of the day and view you. So you have an issue and you come in for a cardiac condition and you need a pulmonologist for a lung condition, we can actually have the pulmonologist from another campus, whether it's day, night, weekend, or holiday, log in and actually do a full exam with the help of the nursing staff from the Hecktown Oaks campus to wherever that person is. So, and that comes up on a TV. And I will tell you, we tested these cameras the other day and they're amazing. One of my colleagues had an earring on and they were able to actually zoom in on the earring and actually depict up on this 55-inch screen exactly what they were looking at. It's amazing. A lot of the comfort and aesthetics of the campus is what's important. And when you come on campus, you'll immediately know this. There's a ton of glass and natural light. Really wanted to make this not a hospital campus, but a campus to focus on health and wellness. So you'll see a lot of visual cues, really that is not traditional hospital looking environments. Open glass, soothing music. We will have the healing garden. Our infusion bays, we work with our cancer advisory council. So patients who have used our facilities in the past and say, how do we design it? They wanted privacy, they wanted light, they wanted a visual nature look. So we provided the healing garden, but they also wanted more comfortable chairs. So we did a lot of investigation with our cancer colleagues and our patient advisory council. And we have chairs there that all have the ability to heat as well as massage and recline. We have a meditation room for patients, staff, family members that they can go in, they can close the door, dim the lights, and really just relax and decompress. We have focused on keeping the environment as quiet as possible. We'll make overhead announcements when it is quiet time so people can actually relax in the afternoon. And then last, but certainly not least, we do have a robust pet therapy program across the network. And we're going to make sure we provide that services so our volunteers can bring the dogs into the patient bedside. We've worked hard with our dining colleagues to make sure that our patients had restaurant style dining selection so they can go and pick the food that they want, that they're accustomed to. Obviously, there may be some restrictions based on their diet, whether they're on a diabetic diet or a cardiac diet or a fluid restricted diet, but they can pick what their preference is. And then one other feature is we have instant eat ordering. That's for our staff as well as our patient family members, where they can actually go on an app on their phone and they can actually order their phone, pay, walk downstairs to the cafeteria, pick it up and walk away. So they're not waiting in lines. And as I said earlier, when we talked about our NRC survey that we sent out to 5,000 residents, there was a heightened awareness on cleanliness and infection control. We made sure that our HVAC system has HEPA filtration, as well as it also has a component of UV light within the system to kill any potential bacteria. Our floor in many of our clinical areas, as well as our operating rooms, are bacteria-resistant flooring. And then we took an extra step in our emergency room, our operating room, and in our med-surg floor in the bathroom to install something called indigo clean lighting. As soon as the room is not occupied for 20 minutes, the light goes from a white light to an indigo light. And that indigo light is near UV, which means it has properties. It's safe. It's not a UV light. It's safe to the human skin, eye. If you're in the room and it's on, there's no detriment to you, but it kills bacteria and the entire time that that light is on. So our goal is to provide an environment that is even safer than our other environments. We're not changing any of our other cleaning protocols. We'll still use UV light for certain conditions in our operating rooms in certain areas. This is an adjunct above and beyond what we normally do to make sure that we start and we keep our facilities as pristine as possible from day one through year 100. And then another added feature in all of our elevators, we were able to put air purification systems in each of those cabs. And that was as a result of the feedback we received where patients and families told us about elevator experiences they had during COVID. We wanted to make sure that they felt good about the size of the elevator as well as the air filtration within the elevator. Here's the fun part. This is the show and tell. This looks a lot different. This is a week ago. So what you don't see in this sign is the main Lehigh Valley Hospital sign, which is on the top building. I'll put my cursor over it right here. That is done. A lot of the final paving is done. These black kind of trash bag looking things over the emergency room, they are still there. They cannot be taken down permanently until the hospital is officially open and licensed, because we don't want anyone driving by and see the sign of emergency and pulling in and think they could receive care there. So that's why they're covered like that and it looks unfinished. If I look at this picture from right to left, it's the emergency room, the main hospital, the Cancer Institute, and then it's the health center. Up top left, when I talked about the children's bays, you see a lot of child-friendly colors and textures and tones, as well as the wall covering in this middle picture here. Down the bottom, it's an interesting view of how the camera angle is, but to the center left here, this area is the adult waiting area, and it's divided off, and this is the entry point, and then this is the child-friendly waiting area, and it looks a lot different. So if anyone is able to come on campus, you'll see the child-friendly furniture. Another theme that you'll see is when you check in, they are a little more private than a typical emergency room. And then we have these extended partitions in case COVID was an issue again in the future. To the right, that's a nursing station. This was feedback we received from advisory councils as well, that they wanted it to be numbered and they wanted to know where they are. So if I'm a family member, I walk outside and I come back to see my family member, you'll see the visual cue with the lighting up top with the color, and then the walls and around each patient room will have that same color. So you'll know I'm in pod 24 and it's the green pod, or I'm in pod, bed 8 and I'm in the blue pod. So it's just an additional visual cue. Something we didn't think of on our own. We heard it from patients and family members. This is the operating room area. It looks a lot different today than when these were on. These are electric doors. They're very light. We maintain them as glass into the operating room. They don't look like this today. They're still glass, but they're frosted so you can't see in or see out. But this is a lot lighter than a typical door. So if our staff needs to do it, we're thinking of them. They open very easily without the automatic function, but they're all automated. All of our operating rooms are 680 to 710 square feet. What that means is they're very large, and they're very large on a purpose. As healthcare continues to change and more technology comes out, we want to make sure that we can provide the latest and greatest treatments and not be restricted by room size. So these are quote unquote future-proof. We will have a robot here day one for our general surgeons and some of our other specialists to be able to do robotic surgery as well. This is the inpatient unit. Again, work in progress. Most of this is complete at this point. Just very nice natural oak colors. That window where this construction is going on right now, that will be where the healing garden is. And on the other side of this area, those open area windows, that's the infusion bay, so that they're able to benefit from the healing garden as well as our patients on the second floor. Some other just looks and as we progress through it, a lot of the cleaning is going on. Actually, the area to the bottom right is the cafe area. That is furnished at this point. It looks completely different. But that middle picture up top, these are our registration bays. What we've heard many times from patients and family members is that when they come in to register for a procedure or they register to be admitted to the hospital, they feel like they're in a hallway and people can listen to their personal information. So they're all very private. They're very spacious and roomy. And all the technology to register you is in there, and you won't feel like you're in a booth by any means. These are quite large rooms, and they open and slide close. And we installed the 1, 2, and 3 colored queuing as well, so people know which bay to go to. This is our Cancer Institute, just to highlight some of the technology. We do have a CT simulator to plan out appropriate care within our radiation suite. We have our open stairwell, which you see to the right. That doesn't mean we don't have an elevator. We do have an elevator, but these stairwells, when they're done, they're open glass, and they're really inviting, encourage people actually to use those stairwells where they can and not wait for an elevator. We do have wheelchairs, we have elevators, we have all that for anyone who would need it, but the open stairwell has been actually proven to encourage people and invite people to use stairs and promote that sense of wellness when they can. This is our breast health area to the left. That's a mammography suite. Again, you'll see a lot of the colors, textures, and finishes throughout are very, very similar, and it's meant to create that environment of a soothing and well environment, not really a hospital environment. And this is our outpatient rehabilitation pool. You can't see it well, but underwater to the bottom of the screen, that's actually a treadmill for gait training and rehabilitation within there. And as you look out of that pool, yourself and the therapist can actually see a video screen to help with the training that's going on underwater. Very neat feature. This is our phase 2 bed tower. This was not planned when we initially broke ground. It was approved by our board last July, and it was based on, you know, some of the nervousness in the community around hospital care and choice. About a third of Northampton County residents actually use Lehigh Valley Health Network. And what we were hearing is they wanted access to not only our specialists, but inpatient care closer to their home. And with some of the changes that were going on at Easton, we wanted to add some additional beds to make sure we were meeting the demand of the community. So we had accelerated this plan, and it's a 4-story bed tower. We're only going to outfit the first floor to provide us additional medical surgical capacity, and then work with the community, the providers, as well as our specialists to say, what do we need to build in the future? So there's a capacity to add an additional 90 beds if necessary to get us to 140 beds. I know that was a lot I threw out there, but I'll stop and take any questions.
Come on, there's a few people out there. We must have a few questions.
Well, I don't want to hog the meeting, but I had a couple questions.
Sure.
You did mention about a multi-discipline meeting. What do you mean by that? Are you having them, you made it convenient for your patients? I think it's something that you said.
Yeah.
Let me give you a little background. My son was recently he passed away, but he was in a nursing home, and he had that kind of meeting, but everyone came at the same time to meet about his care, and it was phenomenal. So is that the same kind of meeting you're talking about?
Yes, it is. Where I was talking about it happening is in our Cancer Institute.
Okay.
So, you know, I just give a broad example. If you know, you're unfortunate and you're diagnosed, say, with breast cancer, and you come in, you see your surgical oncologist, you go through the appropriate diagnostic procedures, and unfortunately it comes back as positive. Instead of you seeing your surgeon in one location, your oncologist in another location, your radiation oncologist, your genetic counselor, your case management, kind of what you're talking about, but it's focused more on cancer care. You'll actually come to one appointment and everybody will be there.
Okay.
And they are focused on you and only you and your treatment. So you get all your answers, all your appointments, and your care plan discussed with you there present. But what you're talking about, we do at many of our other hospitals, which is, you know, the multidisciplinary care planning. Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. All right. My other question. So you did talk about focus on wellness. What other wellness programs do you have?
Yeah. So phase 2 is going on, which is the tower. We have some other phase 3 and beyond plans to use our gorgeous campus for, you know, walking trails and other things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Healthy eating, one of the things I left out is we have 3 conference rooms, because most people don't talk about conference rooms anymore based on what we're doing today, which is virtual. We hope to get back to a place where we bring the community on campus and talk about our wellness programs. Healthy eating is one, our health screenings, our rehabilitation programs, things like that. And really, some of this is prevention. Primary care and cardiology are actually co-located in the same space.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't feel like you're always being sent to a specialist. And if you're at a primary care visit and there's a question for the specialist, you don't necessarily need to make another appointment. They can actually discuss your care because they're in the same suite. Breast health services, wellness. And most people think of mammography and surgical oncologists who are breast surgeons as cancer. That's not always the case. And many times it's not, it's benign. So we're able to diagnose, treat, and get you home without the worry by it all being on one campus. I think a lot of the wellness that is here today is up here. It's the nature, it's the soothing sound. It's not the sterile hospital environment. It is clean, but it doesn't look that way. It's inviting. There'll be soothing music playing through that connector from the hospital to the Cancer Institute. It's a cloud ceiling, and there's actually subtle music playing in and bringing the sounds of nature from the front of the hospital to the back of it. But we have a lot of plans outside of it for full wellness. And if we can ever get back to using our conference rooms, you'll see there'll be a lot of community health promotion.
That would be awesome. Well, I'm in Hampton, Virginia. But if I were close by,
if you ever get to Easton, you can come by and see us.
I'll come in. Well, I
Yeah.
wanted to give you just one thing. I wanted to say that your bus routes, you're making sure, first of all, I was in real estate for 18 years, served on the board, was a principal of real estate instructor, and I know how hard and difficult and expensive it is to get a bus route your way. But I want to thank you for doing that. If no one else tells you that, my son was in a nursing home for almost 2 years, and the most relaxing time I had before I got to see him was taking the bus. Number one, I was new to Hampton, and so were places that I didn't know how to get there, and rather than stress and strain of doing that, I could relax, I could crochet, I could loom knit, I could read, while for the hour and a half it took me to get to him. So thank you for that, very much so.
Thank you for the feedback.
Jim, go ahead, Ken.
Jim, I wanted to ask you what kind of physician coverage there is in the hospital 24 hours a day, and are there resident programs going to be involved in this hospital site?
Yeah, so at this point, hospital and internal medicine residents will not be here at this point because as part of the American College of Graduate Medical Education and the residency programs that are regulated, the hospital needs to be here and it needs to be added as a site for the students and appropriate. I would say that there may be the opportunity for learners in the future, but day one, hospital medicine will be here 24 hours a day. So that's physician and APC coverage, as well as our emergency room providers. Our surgical specialists will be on campus during the day operating and on call 24/7, 365 to support the care of the emergency room and their patients that are here. But that's who will provide the hospital-based coverage. We have an escalation kind of plan as volume picks up, and we're hopeful that the community wants to use this campus. We're proud of our offerings, and as that accelerates, we'll add more hospital-based physicians. But we do have why it's so important to have those cameras. If there's anything that our hospital medicine physicians can't care for themselves, they're a video camera, a video visit, telehealth away from any of the specialists to see and decide if they need to send someone to a higher level of care. We will not have an ICU here day one. It's something we're talking about as a need for the community in the future, but we feel confident right now with the Muhlenberg campus being so close that higher level of care can get there. We will have a helipad on campus. We don't plan to keep a helicopter here, but if for some reason someone is in an extreme condition and needs to be transported quickly, and it's traffic time on 22 or 78, we can actually pick them up and travel via air.
But you're going to have the house physicians in as a part of the triage of patients and so forth.
Yeah, they will manage all of our patients. They work closely with our specialists. and they will be here 24/7, 365. And it's a dedicated crew to the hospital. That's the one other thing that I really didn't mention is all of our providers and all of our staff coming on not only need a campus specific orientation about what Hecktown Oaks is and what the community we're serving, but they also need, they have a 2-hour class on patient experience. And really to make sure that when you arrive on campus or a loved one arrives on campus as a patient, we are providing you with the best experience. And that's starts from your registrar and ends with your specialists and your physicians and your surgeons. And we're being very clear and deliberate about that training.
I wanted to praise you with the air filtration emphasis that you had. I mean, that the greatest cause of transmission of infections, I think, is the air. Of course, in surgeons, there's fomite and touching, but the air filtration systems are not ideal in a lot of hospitals, and that's a wonderful part of this new process. I wanted to ask you also, you're starting up with a lot of balls in the air and a lot of things to do. And I'm wondering what kind of quality processes you're having in place to make sure that things are happening the way you say they should happen.
Yeah, so the one benefit about being part of a large network is exactly that these processes are in place across the network. One of my colleagues who just left my office immediately prior to this meeting starting is Dr. Pat Taselli. He's our Chief Medical Officer. So he's on campus as often as I am, walking the halls, working with the staff. We're doing drills. We're doing mock events, whether that's a code blue or a respiratory need, all of our ER simulations. We're taking every minute of every day before opening to make sure that we refine our processes before we're open to patient care. As far as quality metrics, we'll be following all of our standard quality metrics that we do across the rest of the network. We have some very robust systems where we monitor quality and we monitor feedback, we monitor outcomes. We'll be using all of those, but Dr. Taselli, myself, Bob Begley-Mini, who is the president at the Muhlenberg Hospital, will also be president here at Hecktown Oaks, will make sure that all of the processes at all of our hospitals are carried through to Hecktown Oaks.
Bill Walters here, Jim. Just wanted to tell you, because I'm sure you're not familiar with the past history of Pennsylvania Kiwanis, but in the 1980s, I believe Roger can verify this with me, Pennsylvania Kiwanis was very instrumental in telehealth medicine, providing various video and telephone links to more remote hospitals in the outlying areas of Pennsylvania, with major hospitals in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
I did not know. That's a great fact. As I said, this meeting is the most interesting meeting I've been on in a really long time. I'm enjoying it. Pennsylvania
Kiwanis clubs generated $1 million for the child's wing, the Janet Weiss wing at Danville, Geisinger Danville, by the way.
Okay.
Again, that was back in the 80s.
Yeah, that's excellent. Great history. Yeah, and the one thing I want to say is that you have an incredible organization. You really do. And our goal with coming to these meetings and talking is figuring out not only what Hecktown Oaks is about. I want to create a relationship with organizations like yours to say, this is what we think is important in Easton. This is what we think is important for the children. We've done that with the other groups so far. We've worked with Greater Easton Development Partnership. We've working with the State Theater on some safety stuff there and sponsorship. Working with Two Rivers, our Weller Foundation, which I think most of you are probably very familiar with. Really finding out where the gaps are and the needs to better care for our children in our communities and our Riley Children's Hospital, all of that. So at some point in the future, if you're not able to make it out to campus and you have any thoughts on what we can do better, that's what we want to do. It's not about admissions to this hospital. It's about providing better health to our community. And we want to partner with groups and partner with our communities really to make sure that we're providing the service we need. We're very fortunate to be part of a large organization with a lot of resources. And I think we can help partner with, other organizations within the communities more directly to say, this is what you're missing. And that's what we'll fight and work for. We're doing a lot of work right now with the Greater Valley Y to say, how can we work better with the Ys to make sure that, their before and after care that we're making it easy for, moms and dads and their kids to get school physicals, things like that. If they have programs for seniors, can we put someone there to help with blood pressure screening and making sure wellness is maintained? And if not, get them to another facility. And honestly, I would probably be fired if anyone heard it. If the closest facility is St. Luke's and you go to St. Luke's, that's okay. It's about the health of our community. And you do have alternatives within the Lehigh Valley, 2 good alternatives. We feel confident in the care we provide and would love for people to use our facility 100% of the time, but we know that's not possible. But we want to work with agencies to find where the gaps are and really fill those gaps.
Well, Ken, that's a great lead in for you, Ken, to talk to Ashley and Jim both as they settle in and start getting things rolling, that maybe they can find a member to join the Easton Kiwanis Club, and you can work with them on that, Ken.
Happy to do that.
Oh, that was perfect. That was perfect, Bill.
Oh, and Bill, absolutely.
I do have one other question. That it sort of piggybacks on what Ken asked. You have a lot of balls in the air now, but once you get up and rolling, how are you going to maintain your level of professionalism, accountability that you're establishing in your opening? A lot of times, with working with young people, I'm gonna blame it on them for this time. They become a little, oh yeah, we are, rah rah, yeah, texting and all that while they're working. How are you going to maintain that excellence that you're establishing?
Yeah, so it's a process, and for me, what I'm proud of with this campus, and it's different than what we've done in the network, and we are expanding what we're doing here, to our larger and our existing campuses. It starts with hiring the right people, and our interviews start online like this, where we ask questions, and the questions aren't about your skills. Your skills are evaluated on paper before you get to that point. The questions are behavioral. What have you done to help a patient? Tell us about a great experience. Tell us about an experience that could be better. They're behavioral based questions so that we can actually then grade that, look at that and say, I'm not sure this is the person I want to interview. And then most people make it to an interview and you interview them. And we keep going down that line of questioning because we know that most of our staff that come on board, they've gone to school, they're educated, they have the degrees. It's hard for us to assess that. But the one thing we definitely can assess is the human nature, the empathy, their cultural fit. So every person that works on this campus was evaluated that way. And we don't like using the word chosen, but we've used it a few times. They were accepted to work on this campus. Because you've worked at one of our other large campuses for 30 years doesn't mean you have the right to come to the Hecktown Oaks campus. We want to provide something incredible from day one. So that's how it starts. And then I think taking care of those colleagues, making sure that they feel respected and their experience is great, because we know, and it's proven, that great colleague experience translates into great patient experience. And if you create that culture and someone picks up that iPhone when they shouldn't be in front of a patient, someone's going to talk to them about it. And if we get that feedback, we'll obviously address it and reiterate, some of that. And then last, it's the measurement. We worked with Press Bainey for many years, and now we're entering another kind of survey group, which is NRC, where our patients can give us real-time feedback. We actually get alerts within 24 hours now if we find out through a survey or through any sort of feedback mechanism, so we can actually address it in real time. You'll get a phone call from myself or one of the other execs within the system or the manager. So we try to keep on top of that and capture it, and we share those results with our staff so they know what the expectations are. So it is a process, and it's not an easy one. I'm not sitting here saying, no, we got this one down, we're going to work at it. But I think it starts with hiring the right people.
I was really impressed with how big these buildings are. I guess it's really, a couple of them are separate. And driving by Hecktown Road there, I wondered how in the world I would know where to go. And I presume you're going to have a lot of signs out there directing us to the different services.
Yeah, so 3 buildings right now, hospital, Cancer Institute, and the health center. There is a ton of wayfinding. We worked through it internally. We worked through it with our Patient Family Advisory Council from our Cedar Crest campus, representatives, and did many WebExes and layouts and different aerial views and did that. And then what we did was we invited everyone out to the campus and we walked the campus. Say, all right, if you're pulling in this entrance and you need to get to the cancer center, where do I put that sign? How big does it need to be? And what do you want on that sign? So I feel confident that when we open on July 1st and all the signs are complete, that these signs will take you to the right place. And if you arrive at the wrong place, you'll arrive to a smile and we'll relocate you to the right place.
I have to say, 11 years ago, when I was diagnosed with some large B-cell lymphoma cancer and went to local hospital to talk about it, a retired surgeon from Easton, who was a personal friend of mine, said, "Oh, I got to take you to Sloan Kettering in New York. We're not going to mess around with Lehigh Valley." I said, "Look, if I'm not happy with what I'm hearing, we'll go to Sloan Kettering." But I said, "Why should I leave the Valley?" He said, "Trust me, nobody flies into the Lehigh Valley from Europe for cancer surgeries." Today, I'd have to say, and by the way, I didn't leave the Lehigh Valley to go for my cancer work. When I was diagnosed and I told him what was being done, he says, "Oh, well, Sloan Kettering wouldn't have done any better either." And I said, here we are 11 years later, and I've seen the transformation of both of the hospital networks in the Lehigh Valley. And how many buildings and how many offices do you rent through the greater Lehigh Valley? Just like the other, I know the other hospital, there's over 250 buildings in the greater Lehigh Valley and the lower Poconos. And you guys have got to be approaching that also. It's just amazing that there's so much has happened in the last, I'm going to say 10 or 11 years, that I feel very comfortable staying in the Valley, living in the Valley. And we live in a 55 and older community that's a relatively new one. And talking to some of the transplants to our neighborhood, some of the transplants moved here because of the current, at that time, 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 years ago, health abilities in the Lehigh Valley, and they're happy they're here now.
Yeah. So how many buildings do we have? I don't know the answer to that. That's a really good question. And I can talk to our real estate guys about that. It's a lot. It's a lot. So, and anyone who's been in the Valley for, any period of time knows that we had many health systems for a while. Easton was on its own, and then it was part of CHS, and it was part of Stewart. You had Sacred Heart, you had osteopathic, you had, Lehigh Valley was ASH, it was, so it was separate. So there were a lot of health systems with consolidation, and obviously there's pros and cons to all that. We have 2 health systems now in the Valley, but we have a growing population in many of our communities, and I think we're probably oversized from a health standpoint within the Valley. I think that's probably a fair assessment. But you're absolutely right. I will tell you, as I said earlier, I didn't grow up in the Valley. I'm proud of the healthcare that is in the Valley. You have 2 really good choices for care. Obviously I have my bias. I look at some of the programs that we have, and some of, I often use this situation. People talk about robotic surgery, and it was once, "Oh, I don't want robotic surgery." And I will tell you, I've been a part of that program for a long time. One of our urologists, Dr. Bacala, who is very well regarded in this area, has one of the greatest pedigrees of any surgeon that I've worked with, from where he trained, who he trained with, who he trained under. And I've worked very closely with him, making sure he had the right equipment and surgical services to provide the latest and the greatest treatment. And when I started in healthcare, and it wasn't even the 27 years ago or however long it is, when I started in healthcare, even in anesthesia, 19 years ago or so, a prostatectomy is something that you came in, it was a brutal surgery, you spent 5 days in the hospital, you probably got a couple pints of blood, and you went home in a lot of pain. Well, with surgeons and specialists like Dr. Bacala and his colleagues, and the equipment we're able to put in his hands, we're doing radical prostates, and we're sending you home the same day with the drain. And that's sometimes with no narcotics. So that speaks to the level of care you can receive in the Lehigh Valley. And why go to Memorial Sloan Kettering anymore when we can bring all those treatments to you? There may be the rare specialist that you need to go there with that we don't have, and I don't know who that is yet. There may be an opportunity for that. And I will tell you, us having that connection and part of that alliance that care is discussed between the Valley and New York, and the decision is made based on the clinical need.
My comment may be more Ashley's than yours, Jim, but both of you really, I think it's been great to see the way you have been out in the community of Easton. You know, we've always had a feeling in Easton that water ran downhill from Allentown to Bethlehem to Easton, and we were always the sort of last consideration. But I think there has been quite a visibility of the organization and support in many ways, and it's much appreciated. And I think it will be to the benefit of the organization. So thank you for that.
No, absolutely, Ken. And I'm glad you said that, because we've worked very hard to not just put banners up, work with the groups. And there's been a lot of discussion ongoing that people don't see that obviously goes on behind the scenes. But, you know, Ashley and her team are tremendous. And I will tell you, I've been to the Easton Farmers Market 3 times this year already. And, you know, I've spent many, many hours there. It's a great community. It's a great venue. There are a lot of great people down there. There are restaurants. We need to do more to promote Easton. You know, I'm working on the West Ward initiative. It's something that I think we as a large health network should do and can do. And I'm completely empowered by our executive leadership team to get involved and do things and bring good things there. So we're working hard to get, you know, involved, whether that is in sponsorship and signage and things like that, or it's just getting there to talk to people and making sure that we're participating and supporting it. We have our Easton Health Center. We now have Hecktown Oaks. We have our Palmer Health Center. We're here for good. You know, that's one of the things that I can say. We're not planning on being here for 5 or 10 years as a trial. We're putting hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of buildings up because we feel good about being part of this community and want to bring, you know, health and wellness to the community.
Good. Any more questions? Well, thank you.
Guys, I went over.
Yeah.
No. It's good that you went over. It was very informative. I, for one, have used Lehigh Valley Health System and your physicians for several years now, and we'll continue to do so. And as you move towards Easton, I mean, the one that's over on 248 made it a lot more convenient to go for testing and appointments. And my wife and I have been very happy with that. So thank you again. We're glad you could join us. One of the things, an advertisement for joining our club is, at least in the near term, we will continue to do two Zoom meetings a month rather than 2 in person. So it's easy to get to our meetings and not have to go in person.
That's
Ashley
great.
and I are only a room apart.
Neil,
I just say thank you all so much for having us today. And I did send out a invitation this Friday, June 25th. We're doing community tours. So we would love if anybody's available to come by. We have in the invitation, there's a sign up genius for different time slots, and we'd love to see you guys there. It's really a fantastic opportunity to kind of see the back end of how the hospital operates. You'll never get to see it again, you know, unless you're here for care. But you know, some of the things that we're showing are really, really neat to see. So we'd love to have you guys if you can make it.
We did send that out to all our membership too, Ashley, just so you know, and I hope that there will be a number that get there.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to see you guys.
So you had something?
no, that was all. Thank you. It was a great presentation.
Okay.
Thank you
you.
guys.
It was my pleasure to be on with you guys. Thank you for what you're doing.
All right.